This is a big deal for me today, not because I'm preaching, because I get to preach a lot. But this is a big deal because, number one, I'm in Herschel's pulpit, and that means a lot to me. And it means a lot to me because you may not know this, but I decided to start attending this church years ago before I started attending, because I was on a Sunday morning that I had not gone to my own church. To be honest, I was in a phase of my life where I was struggling to get to church even when I wasn't preaching. And I turned on the radio, and I forget what radio station it was. It doesn't matter, but I started listening to this man preach, and I thought, and I'd known Herschel. I'd known him for years at this point. And I started listening to this man preach, and I thought, man, I like this guy. I like this. There's an amazing thing when a preacher, for everybody here, can have milk, meat, and beef jerky. That's not an easy thing to do, and this man had milk, meat, and beef jerky. And I was listening, I thought, who is this guy? Where is he? And all of a sudden I heard the name Dr. Herschel York, and I thought, that's where I need to be going. So it took me a few years to finally get here, and I went to services over at the old building and then finally joined, I guess, a year or so ago. I never am here, though, as someone has already teased me this morning. It'd be nice if you showed up to church every now and then, which is fair, but I'm never here because I'm always out preaching somewhere else. But it's important for me to be here today because it's an honor when anyone gives me a pulpit, because I can't do what I feel called to do unless pastors like Herschel give me their pulpit. But it's more important to me that I'm here in front of you all today, because I may be here very rarely, but you all are my family and my church family, and that matters a lot to me. It's a silly thing to say, and it sounds kind of narcissistic, and it may be, but because I'm introduced the way Chris introduced me a lot of times with the whole UK connection and the national championships, I'm known. People know who I am, especially around this area. And that puts me in a hard position, because let me tell you what I love. I love coming to altars. I love at the end of a sermon when I've been convicted, I love coming up here and kneeling and getting right with God, because I'm rarely right with God, you know what I mean? And what I found about you all is you all are a church that I can come up here and I can pray, and there's no gossip about what on earth would Cameron might have been praying, what's going on in his life. I've had that happen. I've gone up and I've prayed at altars for at churches, and I've been surrounded by people afterwards saying, are you okay? Is everything okay? I just needed time with God. You all have never treated me that way, and so you all are so much my family, even though I'm never here, so thank you. So it's a big privilege to be in Herschel's pulpit today. It's a bigger privilege to preach to my family. So thank you all for this honor. The Ten Commandments was given by God through Moses to the Israelites. And I believe, and I could be proven wrong theologically, but I believe he was given the Ten Commandments to give to the Israelites because, like us today, many of us, most of us, our country certainly, in the world, believe one basic thing. We all believe the biblical concept of nobody's perfect, or all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But there's this other side that we tend to believe, that is, but I'm a good person. You ask anybody, there are a lot of people that are agnostic and atheistic who still believe in heaven. And if you ask those people, okay, well then how do you get there? The answer is invariably, and it makes sense. It makes so much sense. The answer is, well, I'm a good person. Because everything about our world is you get what you deserve. Friday, many of you received a paycheck. Was that paycheck based on what you're going to do these next 2 weeks or what you've already done the past 2 weeks? School just ended at UK. There were a bunch of students who got grades. Were those grades based on what they might do or what they did? And were those grades based on gifts or were those grades based on what they earned? That's what we believe in our world, is you get what you deserve. That's why I'm convinced that the words that are in this book are the Word of God. Because no human being writes the gospel, folks. No human being comes up with Christianity. And so what I want to do this morning is I want to take the Ten Commandments, which was given by God to Moses to the Israelites, so that they knew who they really were. The Ten Commandments is a mirror. It's to stand in front of and say, what am I? Who am I? Where am I? Mirrors don't lie. The Ten Commandments is for us to look at and say, where am I on an account of God? Now here's what I know. I know me. I know me, my mother and father are here this morning. I know me, and I've told her this before, she knows this, contrary to what she believes, better than she knows me, okay? I know my heart better than my mother knows my heart. She thinks she knows it better, she's wrong. I know me better. I know what I'm capable of. I know what's in here. I don't know what's in your heart. I can judge fruit, and I can judge, as I'm not supposed to do sometimes. I can look at what's going on outwardly, and I can imagine what's going on inwardly, but I'm often wrong. But I'm never wrong about what I know I am. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to walk through each of the 10 commandments, and I'm just going to show you who I am, because I don't know you. And yes, I can follow the scripture that says we're all sinners and fall short of the glory of God, and I know that to be true of all of us, but I'm going to show you specifically who I am. Exodus chapter 20. And God spoke all of these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Commandment number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. I grew up a Christian, if you can, meaning I grew up in church. My mom and dad had us, or my mom, I should say, had me in church 9 months before I was born. You ever heard that saying? We grew up in church. When Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening, Thursday evening, when the church doors were open, my mom and dad had their kids there. And because I grew up in church, the only God that I've ever believed in, the only God that I've ever believed existed was Jehovah God of the Bible. And it wasn't until I got older that I heard of, there are other religions and there are other gods that other people believe in. But even then, I only believed in Jehovah God of the Bible. This has always been the God that I believed only existed, and to this day I believe that. So you would think that I pass number 1, that I get a check mark. Yes, only God. No other God before God? Sure, because he's the only God I ever believe in. Here's the problem. All a God is the number 1 thing in your life. That's all God is. And God is saying, I have to be the number 1 thing in your life. And when I'm not, then you've had other gods before me. Plato described it as this. He said, imagine a triangle. He said, along the base of the triangle, you line everything that is of any significance to your life. If it matters at all, it makes the triangle. It can be a video game. It can be food. It can be a certain type of food. It can be a person. Anything that matters, all that matters, you put it along the base of the triangle. But if you imagine a triangle, he said you have levels leading up. He said, and you have to decide which of these things, basically it's a prioritization, right? Which of these things along here am I willing to leave behind in order to hold on to other things? So he says you take what's along the base of your triangle and you move it up. And as you get higher and higher in the triangle, you start to have room for fewer and fewer things. And Plato says when you get to the apex, when you get to the top of the triangle, Plato says there is room for only one thing. And you have to decide what that one thing is that you are willing to hold on to after you have sacrificed willingly everything else. That is your God. And I would like to tell you that from the time I was 7 years old, when Jesus became my Lord and Savior, that God has always been at the apex of my life. Basketball's been at the apex of my life. Because of basketball, my little celebrity that I have in Kentucky has been at the apex of my life. My fame, my ego, that's certainly been at the apex of my life. If you can't tell from seeing When I Played to Me Now, food has been the apex of my life from time to time. Entertainment has been the apex of my life from time to time. Other people have been the apex of my life. My problem is I rotate my gods. And I can't even honestly tell you that Jehovah God of the Bible has spent more time at the apex than anything else, because I don't know that that would be honest. I'm 0 for 1. Number 2, you shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness or anything that is in heaven above or that is in the earth beneath or that is in the water underneath the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting iniquity of the fathers on the children to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to the thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. By the way, you know in the book of James, it says, chapter 2, verse 10, that if we err in one, we err in all, right? So if I'm 0 for 1, I'm done for. We all were there, right? All right, but for the sake of argument, let's keep going. So here we go to number 2. Well, this is automatic too, because if anything in my life has ever been to the apex of my life, therefore I've ever had anything other than God as my God, then that automatically becomes an idol. So basketball has been an idol. Celebrity has been an idol. Girls have been an idol. Fame has been an idol. TV has been an idol. Food has been an idol. I'm 0 for 2. Number 3, You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him, or will hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. At this point, we start to get into the tricky ones. God is not his name. His name is Yahweh, Jehovah. That's his name. God is his title. I don't think, however, I've even said God and not been talking about him or to him respectfully. There is another name of God named Jesus Christ, however, and I am darn sure I've never said that in vain, because I don't know about you all, but that causes my blood to boil. Have you ever thought about the craziness that the name of our Savior has become a curse word, swear word, cuss word, whatever you want to call it? Do you know that is no other faith? No other faith has that. You want proof that the Bible is the Word of God? Just look at that. That Satan is actively trying to take the name of our deity and make it a swear word. What other faith does that happen in? Where else does that happen? That Jesus Christ is literally among the words people use to express anger, to express frustration. And by the way, it's not even among the 7 words you can't use on television. They use it all the time. I've never said Jesus' name in vain, but I've let things come out of this mouth that if my mother knew, we'd be having a talk on the way home. And I'd like to tell you that I've let things come out of my mouth that are not honoring for him. Basically, it's this: I've let things come out of my mouth that I cannot imagine coming out of the mouth of Jesus Christ. And I'd like to tell you that those things they come out of my mouth when I'm angry, as though that's some sort of justification or excuse. That is true. They do come out of my mouth when I'm angry. But even worse than that, they come out of my mouth when I think I'm being funny or cute. I use words that I shouldn't use to emphasize a point, to try to make people laugh. I did it last night. I'm 0 for 3. By the way, 0 for 3, let's just think of this in terms of a basketball game, okay? Remember, I was a shooter, and that's all I could do. 0 for 3. When I was put in the game, if I missed my first 3 shots, I was out of the game. When you go 0 for 3, God has a right to, at this point, I want you to come over here and sit on the bench. Number 4. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. You, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, or the livestock, or the sojourner who is with you, who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Again, it's tricky. We as Christians tend to believe that the Sabbath is when? Today, right? What do you think I'm doing up here? This is work. If the Sabbath is today, then I'm sinning right now. I'm breaking this commandment, as is every preacher, priest, and pastor that is standing before their congregation today. Our Jewish brothers and sisters believe the Sabbath is when? Yesterday. So here's what I believe, and again, I'm willing to be told I'm wrong, I'm willing to listen, and I might be. Here's what I believe, because the Sabbath was made for us, right? Not us for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is that one day out of 7 that you pick to rest. Do you know what day most pastors pick? Monday. They do their work all week, they get to Sunday, that's the crux, not only when they work, let's be clear, but they get to Sunday, which is their big day, and then they take Monday off because they have to have a Sabbath. Sabbath was for them to rest. I've got 4 jobs. I do this. Where's my little towel down there, Chris? Is it sitting right beside you? These spotlights are hot, and I sweat in suits anyway. I've got 4 jobs. I've got this, which I get to do anytime a pulpit's open to me. I work for a home health care company named LHC Group. That's my Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's the job that pays my bills. I've got a radio show, which I recorded last night because I got to fly to Washington today for my 9 to 5 job. And then the last couple years, I've gotten to make a couple documentaries. And just found out yesterday, we're getting ready to work on our 3rd. I counted one day. And I'm not telling you this is any kind of thing, oh, look how hard I work, because you do the same thing, I bet. But we're not talking about you this morning, are we? We're talking about me. I'm showing you who I am. I counted one day, if I take all my jobs, and I counted how many days I went before I took a day of rest, and I got up to 58 one time. 58 of doing radio, of doing my 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, of doing my ministry, 58 days. And by the way, guess what, day 59? Guess what I did? I worked, I just didn't work for money. The Bible's pretty clear. It says, any work, you shall not do anything. You should rest. I'm 0 for 4. Number 5. This is the one, finally we get to a commandment that I feel like I might be able to check this one off, because these two human beings down here are the most incredible human beings in my life. My mother and father are superheroes to me. Commandment number 5 says this. It says, honor your father and mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord is giving you. Well, you would think that because I love these two human beings, that I would always honor them. They would probably tell you a different story. Because though they are superheroes to me, I'll tell you why they're superheroes. They're superheroes because my house growing up, I remember having a conversation with my mother one day about this. My house growing up, I noticed in high school was always the house that my friends just came to. Whether I invited them or not, they congregated at my house. And it was always funny to me. Well, why here? Why don't we ever go to their house? Why are they always wanting to come here? And my mom said, because this is a house of peace. And I asked her, so I said, what do you mean it's a house of peace? She goes, Cameron, and my mother is a praying woman. My father he sits back and watches, and he doesn't speak a lot. I mean, he and I talk all the time, but he doesn't speak. He watches more than he speaks, which is probably a wiser thing to do and something I wish I could do more of, because I'm constantly getting my foot out of my mouth. But my mother in the family is the prayer. She's also the worrier, but she's the prayer. And I remember her telling me in that moment, Cameron, I have prayed that our house would always be a house of peace. My parents are also my superheroes because when I was in 8th grade, they decided to adopt. And that's amazing enough as it is to take a child that is not your child and say, you can come be our child. But my parents decided to do a special needs adoption. And when I was in 8th grade, they brought 2 terrors into our peaceful household. They were a mess. And as chaotic as they made my home, I sat back watching my parents struggle to parent 2 little girls who had been abused in foster homes. And I sat back and they became my superheroes. But superheroes are not. And if you watch all the Avengers movie, and I won't spoil it for you today if you haven't seen the last one, if you watch them, you always notice this about almost all of the superheroes, there's always fault. And because there's fault in these human beings, I have plenty of opportunity to dishonor them. Let me give you a couple examples. My dad is 70 years old. He is well aware of the global positioning system, yet he has Rand McNally Atlas maps. This morning, he wanted to give me directions to my church. Cameron, here's where you go, on a map. And my mother's always the worrier. And I've told her, I've showed her the scriptures. Mom, you're sinning when you do this. When I was a kid, I didn't make my bed. I didn't clean my room. I lied to them. I talked back to them. I've dishonored these 2 people. And they don't deserve it. I'm 0 for 5. Number 6, you shall not murder. Well, everybody breathe easy. Because I'm not a killer. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a story. I don't know how many hunters we have in here. I grew up in a basketball family, not a hunting family. Some people grow up in a hunting family. And when you grow up in a hunting family, you just hunt, right? November is it for you, especially. Those 2 weeks of modern firearm deer season, that is Christmas to you hunters. Well, when I was around 25, 26, 27, something in me, and look, I'm not trying to be sexist today. I'm just saying, I think there's something that God puts in us males that we want to hunt. We want to. Now, maybe it goes back to our ancestry. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I believe God has put it in. It is innate in us that we have to go and cloak and dagger and sneak around and hunt. But I grew up in a basketball family. Me and my dad spent time on the court, not the field. But when I was 23, 24, 25, I forget exactly when it was, but I remember having this hankering. Ooh, that's a great word. You know the word hankering? I hankered to hunt. Well, my dad, one of his best friends is named Olin, and Olin is a hunter. So I asked Olin, I said, listen, this deer season, would you show me, would you take me, would you teach me? Because look, if you're not a hunter, buying a gun and traipsing off into the woods by yourself is probably not the wisest thing in the world to do. So I had Olin teach me how to hunt, and this was Olin's gift to me. You would think, being the avid hunter that he is, that this is Christmas, the 2 weeks of modern firearm deer season, that he would wait until he had fulfilled his 2 deer tags, right? Before he takes me. Like first weekend, he'll go hunt. Next weekend, he'll take me. No. He took me first weekend. So we went to Walmart because every hunt starts at Walmart. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not. Every hunt starts at Walmart. So we went to Walmart and I bought my first pair of mossy oaks. And let me tell you something, guys. You cannot put on a pair of mossy oaks and not feel like a man. We got our guns. I didn't have one, borrowed one. Got our guns, put them in the truck, and we started driving. This was in Clark County. We started driving, and I swear we drove for 45 minutes until we turned off on a gravel road and drove for another 45 minutes on a gravel road. And he was telling me we were still in Clark County. I didn't think we were still in Kentucky. And we finally arrived at this field in the middle of the woods, and we had been in the middle of the woods for literally 30 minutes. There was this field, and just in this field, there was this random old dilapidated tobacco barn. And it was the hunting lodge. Now, when I say hunting lodge, depending on how you hunt, that might mean, air, heat, refrigerator, stove, wall-to-wall carpet, right? That's not what this was. When I say dilapidated, I mean dilapidated. I mean this was 4 walls, no roof. And we laid out hay bales for our beds and put our sleeping bags on the hay bales and laid down our heads and looked up and saw stars. And that's just manly, I'm sorry. We got up at 4:30 in the morning, and there is no manlier hour than 4:30 in the morning. And then we put on our camo, and we camoed our face, and that felt manly. And then we did the manliest thing of all. We poured deer urine on our heads. Now, I don't know why. I don't know. Look, I'm not a hunter. I was told it was important and it mattered. I felt like I was being, hazed. I did. But we poured deer urine ourselves, and I'm pouring the deer urine on me, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of manly, I'll be honest. We were in our blind by 6:30, and we waited for 4 hours. Now, look, if you all know anything about me, and maybe you can tell from just this morning and what I don't stand still. I don't sit still. I am never still. But I had to sit in a blind and be quiet for 4 hours. And that was horrible. But I did it because there was something about me that wanted to do this. We waited 4 hours at 10 o'clock. All as if they had had a scheduled meeting. 4 deer from different parts of the woods popped into the field at the same time, and I had my pick. At one time, they were lined up in a way that I could have shot once and killed 2. I'm not sure if that's legal or not, but I could have. But Owen's whispering in my ear what to do. I line up my sights. I slowly started to squeeze, and I couldn't do it. And I felt like a woman. I did. I'm just not a killer. I was down in Louisiana this week preaching at a Christian school for Spiritual Emphasis Week. And at one point, there was a kind of a big black spider that kind of roamed in. Like, their worship was going on, and I'm over in the corner getting ready to get in front of the kids. And this black spider just kind of walked in front of me. I don't like spiders. I'm sure they serve a purpose. I don't know what it is, and I just don't like them. And I thought immediately, because what do you do when you see a spider on the floor? You think, well, that might kill me in the next 5 minutes. So I'm like, and I couldn't do it. A spider. I'm just not a killer. So you think finally we come to one where I can check off, okay, Cameron's never murdered anyone. 1 for 6, fine. At least he's got 1. The problem is Jesus comes in the New Testament and says what? He says, but Cameron, if you're guilty of hate, you're in danger of the fires of hell. If you're guilty of hate, you might as well be guilty of murder. And folks, I've hated. In the Christian world, we like to do this thing where we say, well, no, I don't hate them. I just don't like them very much, as though there's a difference. Because we're commanded to love our enemies. No, I've hated. As a matter of fact, I am in my head right now thinking of a person, because I think there's only one person right now that I hate, but I'm thinking of who he is. And I'd like to soften it and tell you, oh no, I just don't like him very much. No, I hate him. I do. And I'm struggling with that, and I'm trying to get to the other side of that. I'm trying to understand that by hating him, he has more power over me than I have over him. And I'm giving him that, and I shouldn't be doing that. I should ignore him. I should go on, and then I should follow the commandment and love him as my enemy. He is someone that has said some very public things about me that aren't true, that aren't nice, and I've hated him for it. I'm 0 for 6. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Well, I was married for a short time back from 2000 to 2003. It was a short marriage. We were only together a year and a half before she left me, and then another year and a half went by, and she finally signed the divorce papers. We were only together. I was only with her. So again, maybe we've come to one because I've never committed adultery, meaning I've never had sex outside of my marriage. You'd like to think, well, maybe I'm finally past this one, but again, Jesus in the New Testament clarifies and says, but Cameron, if you're guilty of lust, you're guilty of adultery. And let's just have some honesty here, folks. That's probably the one I'm the best/worst at. Number 8, you should not steal. I've never robbed a bank. When I leave here, get gas before I get back to Lexington to get on this plane this afternoon, I'm not going to stop at a gas station here in Frankfort and pump my gas and drive off. I might, but it's only because I forgot. I'm not going to stop by a bank and hold it up, though that'd be the perfect crime, wouldn't it? To preach that I'm not going to do it and then do it. Who would suspect me? But I've stolen. Let me give you what's going to sound like a silly example to you, but in my life it's very, very real. When I was a little kid, I grew up in Somerset, Kentucky, in a little neighborhood called Hillendale, and there's a brother over here. There we go. My brother right here grew up in Hillendale as well. How about this, Mom, Dad? My dad, the basketball court, he's played on it. Like every year he goes and plays on it with the Rays. My dad built us a concrete basketball court outside in Somerset, and this man came up to me today and said, I've played on your court. When I lived in Hillendale, I had a friend, one of my best friends, named Andrew Kinch. Now, Andrew Kinch was the only child and was spoiled. Now, he wasn't spoiled rotten. Understand the difference. He got a lot of stuff, and he got a lot more than the rest of us got, all of his group of friends. But he was an only child, and he was spoiled. But he knew he was spoiled. He knew he was getting a lot of stuff. So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being spoiled. What's wrong is when you're spoiled rotten. That's the problem. When you feel like you're entitled, you deserve it. Andrew didn't feel like necessarily he ever deserved it. Andrew was a great guy. As a matter of fact, this is one of Andrew's greatest gifts to me, is that when we were growing up, Andrew and I both had what is, and I'm sorry kids, the greatest video gaming system that's ever been created, called the original Nintendo Entertainment System. Andrew was the one that always got the games before the rest of us. And he grabbed me at school one day, and he said, listen, after school, Mom's gonna go get it. Now what it was the greatest video game that's ever been created for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or any system for that matter, called Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Now, Andrew was going to have Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on his counter when we got home from school. And he came to me secretly. He didn't want any of our other friends to know. This was like his gift to me. I don't even know why to this day he gave it to me. But he said, we're gonna go get it. We're gonna go to your house, and we're gonna play. I don't even know why he did. We could have played at his house. No, we're gonna go to your house. And not only did he come to my house and played, he waited till he got to my house to open it so I could smell the cellophane as it tore. What a friend. I heard you. You sounded like you're about 7 or 8 years old. You have that game? Are you any good? Are you any good at it? You ever beat Mike Tyson? You ever beat Mike Tyson? Oh, you're not that good. Okay, all right. We're good. So we popped it in, and we played as kids would do for 4 hours, completely oblivious to the world. Andrew's mom calls my mom and says, is Andrew there? Yes. Andrew gets on the phone, and his mom is irate because he didn't tell her where he was going. So she finds him at my house playing the video game, and he says, you get home. She says, you get home now. So Andrew panicked, scrambles up the steps of my basement, leaving his Mike Tyson's Punch-Out in my Nintendo Entertainment System, and I did not say a word. The next day after school, he came to my house for one reason alone, to get his Mike Tyson's Punch-Out out of my Nintendo Entertainment System and go home. But That's not what kids do. So we popped it in and we played for another 4 hours. His mom called now, twice as mad as she was the day before. He gets twice as panicked as he was before, runs up my stairs twice as fast as he did before, leaving his Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and my Nintendo Entertainment System for the second day in a row, and I don't say a word. I kept his Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and my Nintendo Entertainment System for 3.5 weeks. Just by lying to keep something that wasn't mine. 0 for 8. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness. You shall not lie. Well, if lust/adultery is not the one I'm the best/worst at, then it's this one. I'm a liar. I can tell you that I lie to spare people's feelings, and that's true. I can tell you that I lie, because I don't want to get in trouble. That's certainly true. I can tell you that I lie because there are things I don't want to do. When I was a kid, my mom and dad will both tell you, I wasn't sick nearly as much as I told them I was sick and couldn't go to school. I'm a liar. 0 for 9. Number 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his male servant, his female servant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, I can honestly tell you, good people, that I have never in my life coveted anyone's ox or donkey, okay? I'm not going to be driving out back to Lexington, past the fields, look over into one of them and say, look at that cow. Look at those udders. That's my best preaching joke. Please don't tell Herschel I said it. Never done that, but I've coveted. My brother has an amazing marriage. And I don't covet his wife. I covet his marriage. He's got 3 precious little children that I adore. He's got a wonderful family, and he has created what we grew up with, which is a house of peace. Now, it doesn't sound like that all the time because he's got a 2-year-old. But he has created a house of peace, and I'm jealous of that. I'm jealous that I don't have a family. I have a family, but I don't have my family. And I'm jealous of that. 0 for 10. That's who I am. You know, one of the most common questions I'm asked by people who don't know Jesus, and I don't think they do this intentionally. They just don't know any better, and I get it. I wouldn't know any better unless I had 2 parents who showed me Jesus when I was a young man. People asked me when I got done playing ball, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going into ministry. And invariably, their next question was, then what are you going to do? As though this was only an era of my life I was going to take advantage of. But the most common question, and we even talked about today, as we sit here and sing about loving Jesus, is why? Why are you here this morning? Why have many of you gone on mission trips? Why do you, like me, maybe it's a circle apex. Maybe he rotates in and out of the number one thing in your life. But why is God ever number one in your life? Well, let me tell you why he's number one in mine when he is number one in mine. Because when I look here, I don't like what I see. Because I know I'm looking here. And if you knew what this was, the way God knows what this is, there would be nothing special about having me in this pulpit this morning. You wouldn't want me preaching. Because I am a sinner. And I am not a sinner because I sin. I sin because I am a sinner. And 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus Christ grabbed them all my 0 for 10s, all my 0 for 100s, and he didn't just throw them away. Jesus didn't throw my sins away. Jesus took my sins and made him his. Matthew chapter 27. Now, verse 45, now from the 6th hour there was darkness all over the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice saying, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which is my God, why have you forsaken me? My God, why have you turned from me? My God, where are you? Jesus grabbed my sin and made them his sin. He ingested them. He became sin. Mine, not his, mine. And God turned his back on his only son so that God's holy eyes could fall upon this mess. Jesus took it all. I've now lived as a believer in Jesus Christ for 36 years. And every day I prove to him and to myself and to those around me how desperately I need the grace, the forgiveness, the blood, and the cross of Jesus Christ. That's who I am. I don't know about you, but I will tell you this. If you look in the mirror that is the Ten Commandments, and you find yourself wanting, I've got hope. Because 2,000 years ago, it was finished. Now he's just waiting on you to grab hold. And you can do that this morning. You can know the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords this morning. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. And God demonstrates in us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, you will be saved from all of your over 10s.